and we're considering item 8.9, Brisbane Road Car Park, an update on the expression of interest process. And I'd like to call for presentation Mr. Paul Skillen, assisted with my Ben Vandenberg.
Thank you, Deputy, and good afternoon, councillors. Excuse me. Thank you. By way of an update, walking through some of the history of the project leading to here, Council owns and has for an extended period of time the 9 sites that currently make up the entirety of the Brisbane Road Car Park. That has 3 street frontages along First Avenue, Brisbane Road itself and Smith Street as well. There's nothing registered against the titles of the site that would indicate that any of the activities that are proposed as a result of the procurement practice that underway cannot be conducted. In terms of the history of the site, it has been an important site to both the former Maroochy Shire Council and the current Sunshine Coast Council. There have been 2 former attempts to develop the site. They took similar paths, that being an attempt to engage the market to have the entire site developed with a view to providing council-owned car parking as well as other uses on the site. The first of those was from 1998 when Maroochy Shire Council conducted an expression of interest process. It was finalised by identification of Juniper Property Holdings as a preferred provider, and a contract was entered into. That contract was finalised by the Sunshine Coast Council in late 2009 without development. Similarly, in 2015, and another expression of interest and tender process, this time commenced by the Sunshine Coast Council, was conducted, which identified a preferred respondent as the Abacus Property Group. That matter was finalised after Abacus Property Group having secured a development approval with conditions for the site, but prior to reaching an agreement with them for the actual development. What that led to then was consideration of where we were and eventually a resolution from Council to approach the development as 2 separate lots, seeking a council-owned multi-deck car park on one portion, that portion being the part that fronts First Avenue and Smith Street, the second being to conduct an expression of interest and tender for development of the site, which is the subject of the report today. The requirements within the tender process for that sought a 5-star hotel with a minimum of 150 rooms, seeking contribution to improved economic, social and environmental outcomes, pursuit of Council's vision and policies for the Mooloolaba placemaking and within the planning scheme, alignment with neighbouring uses. By this stage, the multi-deck car park contract had been awarded and was in the early stages of construction. Details of the preferred respondent are that they have provided a submission that has identified their provision of a 4.5-star rated hotel of 160 hotel rooms, podium car parking for 158 spaces, ground level retail spaces, a function centre and a design which is sympathetic to the adjoining developments. The agreement that has been developed with the preferred respondent is a development agreement, which is the overarching agreement that dictates what needs to come from the disposal of the land to that entity. Keeping in mind that this isn't your standard disposal where you would sell a block of land, forego your interests and leave them. In this instance, what we're trying to do is dispose of the land but facilitate an improved outcome, being the provision of a particular a number of opportunities, namely the hotel and the retail space on the ground floor. The development agreement consists of the design brief, which is a combination of our requirements and their submission. The developer's warranty is a certified deed. As mentioned or shown before in a slide, an easement is acknowledged as needing to run through the site that we're currently talking about in order to allow access to the car park currently under construction. The final or most important of those documents then also is the land sale contract. The development agreement provides Protections for council against a number of events, again reminding you that normally you would dispose of your interest, walk away from it and therefore not have an interest regardless of what occurs on the site. Because we are seeking to have a development once or following disposal of the site, those protections provide for if the developer fails to proceed, the developer goes into liquidation, move down them quickly, and attempt to sell prior to the completion, we would have the ability to prevent, which is again something you wouldn't normally do after having disposed of an interest in a property that you owned, or if a consortium member withdraws from the development. Further protections to council include step-in rights in the case of a step-in deed and a building side deed. They cover both basically the developer and the construction contractor in the event that either of them was to fail, as well as council lodging a caveat over the land to ensure that it cannot be disposed of until such time as we remove the caveat. The dates then contained within the agreement are more or less sunset dates. They're not the dates they're aiming for. They're the last dates required in order to deliver the project. Assuming a signature or agreement reached in July of 2020, development approval they would need to obtain by December of 2021. Settlement date then for the land is of June 2022. Last target finish date is by December 23 and a critical finish date of December 24. I should point out, actually, having said that in terms of the target finish date there, that is the one that they will aim for, whereas the others, particularly the critical finish dates, are their last date of being able to deliver it before certain options for council arise within the development agreement. In terms of the value of the land, as you're aware, it's been made public that an early evaluation of the site had the current site we're talking about valued at $8.4 million. Two matters that could be considered to have affected that are the easement traversing the site. The original valuation did not contemplate that easement, and the easement places upon the owner of that property or the future owner some restrictions on what they can put there. As a result, you could expect it to have some influence over the price that could be offered by someone willing to buy the property. Similarly, the provision of the valuation was on the basis of its highest and best property being used for its highest and best use, which was determined to be residential units at that time. When council is seeking to facilitate the provision of a hotel as they are, you could expect potentially there to be implications on the price that a provider would be prepared to pay. It's the difference between saying we'll sell it and you can put what you like there versus we will sell it to you but we are attempting to facilitate a particular outcome. The general benefits identified to the Sunshine Coast are the economic benefits resulting from both the construction of a significant building on the site as well as the ongoing operations of the hotel, which will both provide employment through construction and ongoing employment opportunities through the ongoing operation of the hotel, as well as the benefit provided by the new retail for attracting visitors and the like, as well as the use by the community. Financially also, there is the value of the land sale to be considered and could be considered as an offset to the construction of the multi-deck car park, as well as the generation of what would then be a new rateable property mechanism being the hotel. Its alignment with the planning scheme, it's always important to understand whether the proposal can be built. There would be little use in me putting before you a proposal of something that we did not believe could get planning approval. This presentation to you today is made as the landowner of it, not in any regulatory capacity as the assessor of development applications. So I say that to you as the landowner, saying in contemplation of disposing of the land, we have requested and obtained from a strategic property team an assessment of the current proposal noting it is in its early stages of development. It's a significant proposal put forward, but in terms of its design, it's not at a stage yet that they would put in a development application for, and that's not at the stage of where they've developed it, nor at the stage where they would be interested in putting in a development application, merely because of the point in the process that we are currently at. What has come back is that there is a general alignment. There is a number of matters that will only be able to be addressed in the development application, but there was nothing that specifically could be identified that made it unforeseeable that a development approval could be obtained. Excuse me. So if I was to summarise, we'd received some council direction that had come from a number of documents, workshops, reports and resolutions, including the planning scheme, the Mooloolaba placemaking. As a result of that, and with the resolution of council, we conducted an expression of interest process, followed by then a closed tender process. We identified a preferred respondent, having returned to this forum prior to the election in order to get support for identification of that preferred supplier. We've had a probity advisor, outsourced probity advisor, providing advice to us throughout the provision, throughout the time of the process as it has occurred. Then engaged throughout the process, the tender process, particularly external legal advice to give us advice on the development of the development agreement and represent our interests in terms of the legal ramifications for that agreement. We sought outsourced advice from the valuer, both at the time of or prior to starting this particular part of the process and in terms of a more recent valuation that's within confidential regarding the proposal being considered. What that has left us with is an outcome that council officers are putting to you is the most advantageous for what has been received. They put forward a professional submission. It is the highest price offered from the process. Delivers the economic benefits through construction and the ongoing operations. It also offers the offset to the car park construction cost. What that then would leave, if we were to enter into this agreement, is a completed development of the site, which is something that's been attempted since 1998 at the earliest. Because effectively what has happened now is, rather than the integrated development across the entire site, where the car park, the council car park, was embedded within it, it's almost been turned 90 degrees, so the car park is embedded on one half, and the development, whatever that be, through the various versions, is now embedded on the other half. Thank you.